The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. Chapter 7. My dear Wormwood, I wonder you should ask me whether it is essential to keep the patient in ignorance of your own existence. That question, at least for the present phase of the struggle, has been answered for us by the High Command. Our policy, for the moment, is to conceal ourselves. Of course, this has not always been so. We are really faced with a cruel dilemma. When the humans disbelieve in our existence, we lose all the pleasing results of direct terrorism, and we make no magicians. On the other hand, when they believe in us, we cannot make them materialistics and skeptics. At least, not yet. I have great hopes that we will learn in due time how to emotionalize and mythicalize their science to such an extent that what is, in effect, a belief in us, though not under that name, we will creep in while the human mind remains closed to belief in the enemy. The life force, the worship of sex, and some aspects of psychoanalysis may here prove useful. If we can produce our perfect work, the materialistic magician, the man not using, but veritably worshipping, what he vaguely calls forces, while denying the existence of spirits, then the end of the war will be in sight. But in the meantime, we must obey our orders. I do not think you will have much difficulty in keeping the patient in the dark. The fact that devils are predominantly comic figures in the modern imagination will help you. If any faint suspicion of your existence begins to arise in his mind, suggest to him a picture of something in red tights and persuade him that since he cannot believe in that, it is an older textbook method of confusing them. He therefore cannot believe in you. I have not forgotten my promise to consider whether we should make the patient an extreme patriot or an extreme pacifist. All extremes, except extreme devotion to the enemy, are to be encouraged. Not always, of course, but at this period, some ages of lukewarm and complacent, and then in our business to soothe them yet faster asleep. Other ages, of which the present is done, are unbalanced and prone to fraction, and it is our business to inflame them. Any small contadori, bound together by some interest which other men dislike or ignore, tend to develop inside itself a hot-house mutual admiration, and towards the outer world, a great deal of pride and hatred, which is entertained without shame, because the cause is its sponsor, and it is thought to be impersonal. Even when a little group exists originally for the enemy's own purposes, which remains true. We want the church to be small, not only that fewer men may know the enemy, but also that those who do acquire the uneasy intensity and the defensive self-righteousness of a secret society or a clique. The church herself is, of course, heavily defended, and we will never yet quite succeeding in giving her all the characteristics of a fraction. But subordinate fractions within her have often produced admirable results, from the parties of Paul and of Apollos at Corinth, down to the high and low parties in the Church of England. If your patient can be introduced to become a conscientious objector, he will automatically find himself one of a small, vocal, organized, and unpopular society. And the effects of this on one so new to Christianity will almost certainly be grid. But only almost certainly. Has he had serious doubts about the lawfulness of serving in a just war before this present war began? Is he a man of great physical courage, so great that he have no half-consciousness misgivings about the real motives of his pacifism? Can he, when nearest to honesty, no human is ever very near, feel fully convinced that he is actually holy by the desire to obey the enemy? If he is that sort of man, his pacifism will probably not do us much good, and the enemy will probably protect him from the usual consequences of belonging to a sect. Your best plan, in that case, would be to attempt a sudden, confused emotional crisis from which he might emerge as an uneasy convert to patriotism. Such things can often be managed, but if he is to make the man I make him to be, try pacifism. Whichever he adopts, your main task will be the same. Let him begin by treating the patriotism or the pacifism as part of his religion. Then let him, under the influence of partisan spirit, come to regard it as the most important part. Then quietly and gradually nurse him on to the stage at which the religion becomes merely part of the cause, in which Christianity is valued chiefly because of the excellent arguments it can produce in favor of the British war effort or of pacifism. The attitude which you want to guard against is that in which temporal affairs are treated primarily as a material for obedience. Once you have made the world an end and the faith a means, you have almost won your man, and it makes very little indifference what kind of worldly end he is pursuing, provided that meetings, pamphlets, policies, movements, causes, and crusades matter more to him than prayers and sacraments and charity. He is ours, and the more religious on those terms, the more securely ours. I could show you a pretty cageful down here. Your affectionate uncle, Screwtape. Letter 8. My dear Wormwood, so you have great hopes that the patient's religious phase is dying away, have you? I have always thought the training college was gone to pieces since they put old Slugblob at the head of it, and now I am sure. Has no one ever told you about the law of undulation? Humans are amphibians, half spirit and half animal. The enemy's determination to produce such a revolting hybrid was one of the things that determined our father to withdraw his support from him. As spirits, they belong into the eternal world, but as animals, they inhabit time. This means that while their spirit can be directed to an eternal object, their bodies, passions, and imaginations are a continual change, for to be in time means of change. The nearest approach to consistency, therefore, is undulation, the repeated return to a level from which they repeatedly fall back, a series of thoughts and peaks. If you had watched your patient carefully, you would have seen this undulation in every department of his life. His interest in his work, his affection for his friends, his physical appetites, all go up and down. As long as he lives on earth, periods of emotional and bodily richness and liveliness will alternate with periods of numbness and poverty. The dryness and dullness, though, which your patient is now going, are not, as you finally suppose, your workmanship. They are merely a natural phenomenon which will do us no good unless you make good use of it. To decide what the best use of it is, you must ask what use the enemy wants to make of it, and then do the opposite. Now it may surprise you to learn that in his efforts to get permanent possession of the soul, he relies on the troughs more so than the peaks. Some of his special favorites have gone through longer and deeper throes than anyone else. The reason is this. To us, a human is primarily food. Our aim is the absorption of it into ours, to increase of our own area of selfhood at the expense. But the obedience which the enemy demands of men is quite a different thing. One must face the fact that all the talk about his love for men and his service being perfect freedom is not, as one would gladly believe, mere propaganda, but an appalling truth. He really does want to fill the universe with a lot of loathsome little replicas of himself, creatures whose life, on its miniature scale, will be qualitatively like his own, not because he has absorbed them, but because their wills freely conform to his. We want cattle who can finally become food. He wants servants who can finally become sons. We want to suck in, he wants to give out. We are empty and would be filled. He is full and flows over. Our war aim is a world is which our Father below has drawn all other beings into himself. The enemy wants a world full of beings united to him but still distinct. And that is where the throws come in. You must have often wondered why the enemy does not make more use of his power to be sensibly present in human souls in any degree he chooses and at any moment. But now you see that the irresistible and the indisputable, that the two weapons which the very nature of his scheme forbids him to use, merely to override a human will, as he felt presence in any but the faintest and most mitigated degree will certainly do, would be, for him, useless. He cannot ravish, he can only woo. For his ignoble idea is to eat the cake and have it. The creatures are to be one with him, but yet themselves, merely to cancel them or simulate them, will not serve. He is prepared to do a little overriding at the beginning. He will set them off with communications of his presence, which, through fate, seem great to them, with emotional sweetness and easy conquest over temptation. But he never allows this state of affairs to last long. Sooner or later, he withdraws, if not in fact, at least from their conscious experience, all these supports and incentives. He leaves the creature to stand up on its own legs, to carry out from the will alone duties which have long all relish. It is during such long so much more than during the peak periods, that it is growing into the sort of creature he wants it to be. Hence the prayers offered in the state of dryness are those which please him best. He can drag our patience along by continual tempting, because we design them only for the table, and not more than their will is interfered with the better. He cannot tempt a virtue, as we do to vice. He wants them to learn to walk, and must therefore take away his hand. And if only the will to walk is really there, he is pleased even with their stumbles. Do not be deceived, Wormwood. One cause is never more in danger than when a human no longer desiring, but still intending to do the enemy's will, looks around upon the universe, from which every trace of him seems to have vanished, and asks why he has been forsaken, and still obeys. But the course of the throws afford opportunities to our side also. Next week, I will give you some hints on how to exploit them. Your affectionate uncle, Screwtape. Letter 9. My dear Wormwood, I hope my last letter has convinced you that the thorough and dullness of dryness through which your patient is going at present will not, of itself, give you his soul, but needs to be properly exploited. What forms of exploitation should take I now will you consider? In the first place, I have always found that the throw periods of the human undulation provides excellent opportunity for all sensual temptations, particularly those of sex. This may surprise you, because of course there is more physical energy, and therefore more potential appetite at the peak periods. But you must remember that the powers of resistance are also the highest. The health and spirits which you want to use in producing lust can also, at last, be very used for work, or play or through the innocuous merriment. The attack has a much better chance of success when the man's whole inner world is drab and cold and empty. It is also to be noted that the throw sexually is subtly different in quality from that of the peak, much less likely to lead to the milk and water phenomenon, which the humans call being in love. Much more easily drawn into perversions, much less contaminated by those generous and imagination, and even spiritual compliance, which often render human sexuality so disappointing. It is the same with other desires of the flesh. You are much more likely to make your man a sound drunkard by pressing drink to him as an iodine when he is dull and weary, than by encouraging him to use it as a means of merriment among his friends when he is happy and expansive. Never forget that when you are dealing with any pleasure, it is healthy and normal and satisfying form. We are, in sense, on the enemy's ground. I know we have won many a soul through pleasure. All the same, it is his invention, not ours. We made the pleasures. All our research so far has not enabled us to produce one. All we can do is encourage the humans to take the pleasures which our enemy has produced at times, or in ways or in degrees which he was forbidden. Hence we always try to work away from the natural condition of any pleasure to that in which it is least natural, least redolent of its maker, and least pleasurable. And an increasing craving for an ever-diminishing pleasure is the formula. It is more certain, and it is better style, to get a man's soul and giving him nothing in return, than it is really gladdens our Father's heart. And the throws are the time for beginning the process. But there is an even better way of exploiting the throw. I mean through the patient's own thoughts about it. As always, the first step is to keep knowledge out of his mind. Do not let him suspect the law of undulation. Let him assume that the first ardors of his conversation might have been expected at least, and ought to have been lasted forever, and that his present dryness is an equally permanent condition. Having once got this misconception well fixed in his head, you may then proceed in various ways. It all depends on whether your man is of the desponding type, or who can be tempted of despair, or will be wishful thinking type, who can be assured that it is all well. The former type is getting rare among humans. If your patient should happen to belong to it, everything is easy. You have only got to keep him out of the way of experienced Christians, an easy task nowadays. To direct his attention to the appropriate passages in Scripture, and then to set him to work on the desperate design of recovering his old feelings by sheer willpower, and the game is ours. If he is of the more hopeful type, your job is to make him acquiesce to the present low temperature of his spirit and gradually become content with it, persuaded himself that it is not so low after all. In a week or two, you will be making him doubt whether the first days of his Christianity were not perhaps a little excessive. Talk to him about moderation in all things. If you can get him to the point of thinking that religion is all very well up to the point, you can feel quite happy about his soul. A moderated religion is as good for us as no religion at all, and more amusing. Another possibility is that the direct attack of his faith, when you have caused him to assume that the throw is permanent, can you not persuade him that his religious phase is just going to die away like all of his previous phases? Of course, there is no conceivable way of getting by reason from the proposition, I am losing interest in this, to the proposition of, this is false. But as I said before, it is jargon, not reason, you must rely on. The mere word phase will likely do the trick. I assume that the creature has been through several of them before, and that all have, and that he always feels superior and patronizing to the ones he has emerged from, not because he has really criticized them, but simply because they are in the past. You keep him well fed on hazy ideas of progress and development and a historical point of view, I trust, and give him lots of modern biographies to read. The people in them are always emerging from phases, aren't they? You see the idea. Keep his mind off the plane's antithesis between true and false. Nice shadowy expressions. It was a phase. It's been through all that. And don't forget to bless the word adolescent. Your affectionate uncle, Screwtape. Hello, this has been the Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. If you've enjoyed this narration thus far of chapters 7 through 9, please consider subscribing. At least viewing this video is indeed helpful for continuation of this, and I do hope you enjoyed the continuation. Thank you, and God bless.